Walk into any American mall right now and you'll feel it before you can even name it. The escalators still move, the lights are still on, but something is missing. Half the storefronts are dark. The directory board at the entrance still lists stores that shut down 8 months ago, and the ones that are still open, they feel like they're just waiting. Waiting for the lease to end, waiting for the corporate memo, waiting for the day the doors get locked for the last time. This is not a slow news day. This is one of the biggest retail collapses America has seen in years, and it's happening right now, in real time, in 2026. Analysts estimate that almost 7,900 U.S. stores will close in 2026, and that number keeps climbing every single month. Almost nobody is saying the real part out loud, though. This isn't just about bad quarters or bad luck. This is about trust breaking down between American shoppers and the brands they grew up with. It's about prices that climbed faster than paychecks. It's about stores that stopped feeling special and started feeling like a chore. And it's about a generation of customers who simply stopped showing up, not out of anger, but out of indifference. That is so much scarier for these companies than anger ever could be. So today we're counting down 12 major retailers that are falling apart in 2026. Some quietly, some violently. All of them symbolic of something much bigger happening in this country. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the stores you grew up walking into might not exist in 5 years. Let's get into it. Number 12. Advance Auto Parts. For decades, Advance Auto Parts was the place your dad went to on a Saturday morning, grabbing a new battery, a set of wipers, maybe just killing time talking to the guy behind the counter who actually knew what he was talking about. It was a fixture of small-town America, sitting on corners next to gas stations and diners, part of the everyday texture of driving in this country. Thousands of locations once carried that name across dozens of states, competing shoulder to shoulder with AutoZone and O'Reilly. It felt permanent, the kind of store that would just always be there. Then came the retreat. The company shut down hundreds of corporate stores and its CarQuest locations, pulling out of entire states like Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, and New Mexico completely. Distribution centers closed. Employees were let go. The footprint that once felt unshakable started collapsing state by state. Strip away the store closures, and what you're really looking at is a business that got squeezed from both directions at once. Online parts retailers undercut them on price, big box chains outscaled them, and the company simply couldn't justify keeping stores open in markets where margins had quietly gone negative for years. This wasn't one bad decision, it was death by 1,000 smaller ones. A store that once meant reliability now means an empty parking lot with a faded sign and a for lease banner nobody's called about yet. Number 11. QVC and HSN. If you grew up in a house where the television was always on in the background, there's a good chance QVC or HSN was part of the soundtrack of your childhood. The hosts felt like family friends. The countdown clocks felt urgent. Buying something at 2 in the morning because a host said it was almost sold out felt, somehow, completely normal. Appointment television, that's what this was. For millions of American households, generating billions in sales, built entirely on trust in a familiar voice on the screen. Today, the parent company has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, restructuring roughly $6.6 billion in debt. The countdown clocks are still running, but the urgency now feels less like marketing and more like a metaphor. An entire generation stopped watching television the way their parents did. That's the whole problem, in one sentence. Shopping moved to platforms that don't need a host, a script, or a countdown clock at all. QVC didn't lose to a rival channel. It lost to the algorithm. A voice that once felt like a friend now competes with a silent scroll. And silence is winning. Number 10. Rite Aid. Rite Aid used to be the store on the corner you didn't think twice about. Prescriptions, snacks, a birthday card on the way to a party. It was woven into the routine errands of everyday life, especially in the towns where it was often the only pharmacy for miles. For years, it stood as one of the big three, alongside CVS and Walgreens, a genuine national pharmacy chain trusted by millions. Bankruptcy hit twice, and this time there's no reset. A total of 1,240 stores are set to close across the country, with the healthier locations being sold off piece by piece to competitors like CVS, Walgreens, and Kroger. Insurance reimbursements shrank, debt piled up. Rite Aid never had the scale to compete with giants swallowing the same market, and it didn't fail because people stopped needing pharmacies. It failed because it never had the size to survive the squeeze. What's left isn't really a company anymore. It's an asset being carved up. A pharmacy that once meant your neighborhood is now just a lease number on somebody else's spreadsheet. Number 9. Jo-Ann Fabrics. For anyone who ever learned to sew, quilt, or make a Halloween costume from scratch, Jo-Ann wasn't just a store. It was where creativity started. Aisles of fabric bolts, the smell of a craft store that somehow every location shared, and a kind of community built around making things with your hands. Hundreds of stores nationwide once carried that identity, a genuine anchor of the crafting world, with a customer base that was fiercely, almost emotionally loyal. All of it is gone now. The remaining locations have shut down entirely, and Burlington is taking over dozens of former Jo-Ann sites, repurposing them into discount retail space. The aisles that once held fabric now hold clearance racks from a completely different business. Here's the uncomfortable part. This is a story about a hobby economy, squeezed from both sides, cheaper craft goods online, and a shrinking pool of people with the time or patience for a hands-on hobby that competes with 1,000 other ways to spend an evening. When a store built on creativity can't survive, it says something uncomfortable about how little unstructured time is left in modern life. Number 8. Eddie Bauer. Eddie Bauer once meant something specific: rugged, outdoorsy, reliable American style. The kind of jacket your father wore for 20 years because it simply refused to wear out. It had genuine heritage, genuine identity. Malls and outlet centers nationwide carried that name for decades, a dependable mid-tier outdoor brand for millions of families. But the company has confirmed that all of its stores in the US and Canada will close unless a last-minute buyer appears, and even the planned auction to save the brand fell apart when no one stepped forward. Identity confusion killed this one slowly. Eddie Bauer tried to be premium and budget at the same time, outdoor and mall casual at the same time, and ended up standing for nothing clearly enough to justify its price tag. When a brand tries to be everything, it often ends up as nothing worth paying extra for. A jacket that once meant built to last is now a liquidation rack with a countdown of its own. Number 7. Francesca's. Francesca's built its identity on being the boutique that felt personal inside a mall. Small batch inventory, trendy pieces, an experience that felt curated rather than mass-produced. For a certain generation of shoppers, it was a rite of passage. Hundreds of locations rode that boutique wave nationwide, catching the early 2010s trend perfectly. Today, the company is closing all of its roughly 400 stores nationwide, unable to recover from a bankruptcy process that started years earlier and never truly stabilized. Timing killed this brand as much as debt did. The boutique mall model that made Francesca's special eventually became its trap. It never adapted fast enough to a customer base that migrated almost entirely to fast fashion apps and resale platforms. What once felt like a personal discovery now feels like a relic of a mall culture that doesn't exist for younger shoppers anymore. Number 6. Saks and Neiman Marcus. At the very top of American retail, Saks Fifth Avenue and Neiman Marcus represented something almost untouchable: old money, luxury, the department store as a temple of aspiration. Walking through those doors felt like an event. Some of the most prestigious retail real estate in the country sat under one parent company, together. Yet that same parent company is deep in Chapter 11 today, closing Saks Fifth Avenue locations and shuttering the majority of its discount Saks Off Fifth stores, while Neiman Marcus quietly closes its own remaining outlet division. Even exclusivity isn't recession-proof. That's the uncomfortable truth for an industry built entirely on it. Luxury here was financed by too much debt and propped up by a discount arm that cannibalized the very prestige it was supposed to protect. When the temple starts closing side chapels to survive, the whole cathedral starts to look less permanent. Number 5. GameStop. For an entire generation, GameStop wasn't just a store, it was a ritual. Trading in old games, pre-ordering the next big release, standing in line at midnight for a launch. It was the physical headquarters of gaming culture. Thousands of stores worldwide once carried that ritual, practically a monopoly on how physical games changed hands. Closures keep accelerating year after year now, with hundreds more locations shutting down across dozens of states in the opening weeks of 2026 alone. GameStop didn't really lose to a competitor. It lost to a download button, and that's almost poetic. When the product itself no longer needs a physical shelf, no amount of nostalgia can keep the lights on in the store that used to sell it. The midnight line is gone, and it's not coming back. Number 4. Claire's. For millions of teenagers, Claire's was the first store that felt like it belonged to them. Ear piercings, cheap jewelry, glitter everything. It was a rite of passage tucked into the corner of every American mall. A genuinely massive global footprint carried that name, becoming almost synonymous with the mall experience itself, for young girls specifically. Bankruptcy has hit for the second time in under a decade, with debt reported as high as $10 billion, closing stores and exploring a full sale of its assets. Its core customer simply grew up into a different world. That's the entire story. Trends now move at the speed of a video, not a mall visit, and cheap jewelry is a same-day delivery away. Claire's didn't just lose customers, it lost the entire shopping ritual that used to bring them in. Number 3. Walgreens. Walgreens was the store on practically every corner in America. Pharmacy, convenience store, photo counter, all in one glowing red and white building open 24 hours. It felt inevitable, like it had simply always been there and always would be. Well over 8,000 locations once carried that reach, one of the most recognizable retail footprints in the country. Today, it's in the middle of closing over 1,000 stores as part of a multi-year restructuring, taken private in one of the largest retail buyouts in history. Its new owners, trying to slow the bleeding without truly stopping it. Zoom out, and the whole pharmacy industry looks the same. Shrinking insurance reimbursements, rising costs, a customer base that increasingly gets both prescriptions and convenience items delivered instead of driving to a corner store. When the corner store itself becomes optional, the corner stops needing it. Number 2. Macy's. Macy's was, for generations, the definition of the American department store, the Thanksgiving parade, the Christmas windows, the place where a trip downtown meant something. It was retail as a cultural institution. Hundreds of flagship and mall locations nationwide once anchored malls that were often built around this one name. These days, it's closing 150 underproductive stores through 2026, with plans to end up running only a few hundred locations total, a shadow of what it once commanded. The department store model itself is what's losing relevance here. When one building tries to sell everything to everyone, it eventually sells nothing distinctly enough to justify the trip, especially against specialized competitors online who do each category better. The windows are still lit at Christmas. The crowds just aren't what they used to be. And number 1, At Home. At Home built its entire identity on scale, enormous warehouse-sized stores packed floor to ceiling with home decor. The idea that you could walk in for a candle and walk out having redecorated an entire room. Huge format stores spread rapidly across the country, riding the pandemic-era boom in home renovation and decor spending. These days, the company has filed for Chapter 11, and the number of stores expected to close keeps rising month over month, well beyond original estimates. Excess is the real story here, and it's the most unsettling one on this list. A business built on giant footprints and giant inventory becomes a giant liability the moment consumer spending on non-essentials tightens. The bigger the store, the bigger the fall. What was once a monument to abundance is becoming a monument to overreach. And when you step back and look at all 12 of these together, a pattern becomes impossible to ignore. This was never really about pharmacies, or department stores, or fabric aisles, or video games. It was about trust. American shoppers didn't abandon these brands out of malice. They simply stopped believing the trip was worth it. that the price matched the value, that the experience matched the loyalty they were being asked to give. Legacy used to be enough to keep a brand alive, not anymore. Today, customers reward relevance, not history. They reward value, not nostalgia. And the companies that don't understand that difference are the ones whose names are showing up on lists, just like this one. So the real question isn't which 12 retailers are falling apart in 2026, it's which one you didn't expect to see here, and which familiar name might be next. Let me know in the comments which one hit you the hardest. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.